Welcome back to Arts Are Education. We're talking about media arts education. Here's part two of our interview. So, given all of this amazingness of media arts, Dain, uh, what the heck? What are the strategies and resources that media arts education needs to apply here to gain widespread acceptance in states and their schools? Because you say there are no media arts certified educators. The standards are out there. Some states have adopted media arts, but not so much, not as many as we would like. So, what needs to happen? What are your thoughts about that?
It's a great question. It's a within education, I think, is the challenge because education thinks that it has a complete picture. I mean, it thinks that it has all the subjects, it has a rounded curriculum. It knows all about learning and education, and the whole system is kind of fixed around that knowing, and it's not particularly given to the idea that it's lacking something. And so I think the educational institution has to have a realization, and I've had this conversation within education for decades, really. Why do we need a media arts program? What is it? Not understanding the environment that we live in, and these global skills that students need upon graduation that they don't particularly get from studying through textbooks. And so the resources that we need really are your podcast, for one. This is a great start. This is the first time, we've had a podcast discussing media arts education. And so we need more of these. We need a lot more of these. We need to educate the educators, the educational institution in particular. And we need the community to come together to do that. We need the media arts educators to realize you can stand alone. You can be a separate entity. You need to work together. We need to connect. We need to be a collective. And they're beginning to understand that and sense that pretty quickly. We need to get that word out to the whole media educator system, but also the community at large, the media arts world that we live in, the industry, the nonprofit organization, the higher ed organizations that are associated with media arts. The media artists that are out there, we need them to join with us. And so we do need to push this issue from every angle, essentially. And so all the tools to get that collective together, we need to produce our own social media. We need to produce our own media and get that message out. And so that becomes quite clear. I think once people get the message, it'll just have its own momentum and it will happen.
Yeah, here's a question for you about storytelling. I know you were involved in a storytelling project some years ago, and it's wonderful. I did check it out. Um, what can we say about the power of media arts to help students tell personal stories? Why is it so effective?
Well, one of the first experiences I had in public school, was teaching at La Piñata. Before that, I was working with the Center for Digital Storytelling, and then I branched out and did Southern California storytelling with students. And most of the students that we worked with were in foster care. It was really important for them on a social emotional level to be able to tell their story. And so that was something that was important to myself and my partner. Also, the underserved communities, the LGBTQ youth at the time, they also wanted to tell their stories because nobody was listening, or they weren't listening deeply, and they wanted to be heard, even if they were heard in small circles of 5 or 6 or 10 other people. Hear me, see me. And so that became a really important element of what we were there for. for those students who needed to, because everybody has a voice, right? It's just finding that voice and being able to vocalize it and being able to visualize it with their images or pictures. And sometimes a lot of the foster youth, they had nothing because they're moving from house to house, they'd lose everything. So getting them to communicate and to create digital media out of nothing, talk about empowering our students, talking about empowering those youth, getting them to write down what they were thinking, and then express it in a way that was either metaphor visually or metaphor in terms of words. Very powerful, very, very powerful stuff. And it really created personal value for them. And I think that that's an important thing to create in the student, especially those of our those communities where students aren't valuable. I mean, you know, these are the throwaway kids, right? For all intents and purposes. And for them to then find that value in their voice and in the media that they're creating, it's far beyond, you know, my new pair of shoes that I just got, or that fancy car that I'm driving, but really deep and personal issues that can influence other students to even think about how to communicate with them. Another really great project that I've done for years is humanizing the classroom experience by actually having students tell their story. I overheard, like my first year of teaching, I overheard these girls arguing about, one girl was saying, well, you only got into USC because you're Korean and they have to do a quota. And the other girl said, well, you've been my friend ever since kindergarten. How could you say that to me? Is that how you really feel about me? And after hearing that, I said, whoa, they don't really know about each other. They don't really know how that hurts each other. And so I decided to do some digital storytelling around their communities and what was happening in their personal communities. And so it really, that's kind of how my popularity at La Chiñada became. Like, she's the cool teacher who really wants to hear your voice, right? And so students came, we had like an open house at lunchtime where students showed their little 2-minute stories, their digital stories, and it exploded. Kind of the thing that was, wow, you can really humanize a classroom experience. Kids can really see each other. They can really know each other by the stories that they tell about their personal lives. Even if it's something as simple as, you know, I don't like chocolate ice cream, you know, because I had this experience with chocolate ice cream, but I really like vanilla. That's something that's simple, done correctly and done right, it can really touch another student.
I'm going to skip up to another question for all of you, just based on what you said, Gayle, and leaping back to some comments that Dain said earlier about community building. Because does it make sense here also that in the process of telling those stories, they are also building a community? How does media arts help build community? Dain, you talked about that project at the beginning of our discussion, which was about directly the community. And Gayle, you're talking about students who are isolated and sharing their stories and building a community. Can we talk a little bit about that business of building community? I want to hear from all three of you on this one. Julissa, I'm going to put you on the spot and start with you, because just to catch you off guard, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. So actually, writing down that community, it's not community building, it's awareness. So once you can recognize the issues in your community, then you as a collective, as the media makers, you're able to find resolutions to them. So that's where we apply our problem solving. That's where students can think deeper and do that critical thinking that we want them to do. And thankfully, with Mr. Olsen's project, students were given the opportunity to analyze their personal communities and see what's a way that they can make it better. And like Gayle was talking about with their students, same thing. Students were we're writing down their stories. And once you can hear someone else's stories and you can visualize it through media, then you can sympathize with it, you can empathize with it, and you can really just it provides new perspectives for people. And I think that's essential, especially with the point that you were making earlier about how we're polarized. It's because nobody wants to hear each other out anymore. And I think media has a special power to do that, especially when you apply ethos and logos and all other parts of that. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Julissa. That was lovely. Dain?
Yeah, well, media is a connector. It connects. That's, you know, it's not a thing in itself. It's a transit. So it's a vehicle, you know, it actually makes the connection. We are connecting right here. And in that sense, you connect things. So when you put a camera in a kid's hands, suddenly they have they're afforded sort of this inquiry of what goes into the camera. Okay, and so now they can investigate their world through that camera. That microphone affords them this power to capture story and to picture story. And so they begin to look at their world in that way, and it makes them go out. You know, you give them a camera, they don't want to stay there. They want to go out and do things with it. They want to capture things with it. They want to capture their world. They want to show their word, tell their stories, and then display those. So in that sense, as a connector, you know, in the school, yearbook, we create the culture of the school. And by connecting all those things, putting them into places where we can communicate what our school is about, what is our theme for this year? What are seniors doing? What are they interested? What do they say? What are their thoughts? And so the art form is capturing stories, putting that all together, and then communicating to the outside world. So it can show the school to itself, and it can show the school to the community. And our students go out into the community and they investigate and they inquire. And I remember a great story of a colleague, Carlos Robles at Southgate High School, who had in his one of video that was produced, they interviewed a student who had started talking to a homeless person and did a documentary about this homeless person that lived near her. And she interviewed them, spent time with them, told that person's story. And her realization was, I gave this homeless person identity I didn't have before. They were anonymous. And to me, that realization just like hit me, that this is a vehicle for us to awaken to other stories and to empathize, like Julissa said. It's just a powerful vehicle for really strengthening that ability, I think.
Just to kind of jump in to that. So media has that unique aspect where you can walk in someone's shoes. And I think that goes to what you were saying about that documentary being made. Once you can see that reality, then it's part of your worldview. Then it just adds to that. And so I appreciated the point that you made, and I just wanted to add that comment.
I want to jump on that one too, because I think I think what happens to that student with that camera in their hands is they become empowered to then really and sensitive, right? Because you can tell a story anyway. Anyway, it can be a good story turned bad or a bad story turned good, or it can be the truth, right? But whose truth? And so when students have to do that kind of critical thinking and understand or communicate to themselves, right? Because think about it, when you're doing a film or digital storytelling, the actual mechanics of doing it means that they've got to hear it over and over again and see that image over and over again. And that does something to people, right? And so let's say you're documenting, you're doing a documentary about homeless populations in LA. and you interview them and you start to hear their stories in your head over and over again. And you start to see their images that you took. And did you take the right image? Did I take that in a way that humanizes that person? Does that, should I have moved this way with the camera or that way with the camera? Maybe I got too much light on one side or not enough on another side. And all of those things in the actual making of the media really starts to become part of you. And even if that story is your own story, then you face yourself. And I found that over and over again when I was doing digital storytelling, that these students were finally facing and verbalizing in some cases things that they hadn't said out loud. And then they were hearing it in their own voice over and over again. And it did something to them. And it, for the most part, empowered them. It made them like shake off whatever that was that they were feeling, or really internalize what someone else was feeling, because they got to hear it over and over again. So I think that the making of the media itself can really change you, the maker.
That's right.
Well, here's a question for Dain, for you and Gayle. How has being a teacher of media arts changed you?
Well, I think that it's been profound. I mean, I have so much student work that is just mind-blowing and so powerful. It's so beautiful. It's yeah, it's changed me in that I have a deeper appreciation for everyone. Yeah, and what Julissa was saying in terms of every person, an artist, is true. It's untapped potential, and in a sense that's sad. You know, I have all these works and I would like everybody to see them all the time, and the students don't even know how beautiful they are. I think they don't look back at them, they kind of move on and so forth. I keep looking at them and I'm incredibly impressed. And I think we underappreciate the artistry of everyone. I think we would be a different culture if we had more appreciation and more sharing of this. It's hidden, you know, it's not valued, it's seen as trivial. That's unfortunate for our society.
Gayle?
Well,
Thoughts?
I think Dain, I think we make it look easy. And so I think that's part of I was thinking about that today. It's like, wow, we make it look easy, but the students really know how much work they put in. And I think that that might be some of the challenge. I didn't get into teaching because it was, I always wanted to be a teacher. I actually never wanted to be a teacher. I was a stockbroker at one point, and so don't hold it against me. And but I was always an artist. So when I went back to art through teaching, that is really when I became whole again, and when I found my soul again. And I think that the students who go through me, I'm their cheerleader, and they know years from now, 15 years from now, my students are, because of Facebook and because of our, because of media arts, they're connecting with me. I'm seeing what they're doing, and so many students are finding new ways to use their art, or they're communicating back to me, hey, I just bought a camera, Miss G. I'm starting to film. You didn't tell me it was this fun. I actually got on a FaceTime call with a special needs student who lives in Arizona, who's doing photography, and she wants to be a photography teacher, which is fantastic. And she walked me through her dark room yesterday and said, look at the dark room. Like, this is the dark room. And hey, this is my teacher. She was my teacher 2 years ago. And I think those kinds of experiences they make you happy to wake up in the morning. And even the challenges of just teaching on a daily basis, when that kid gets that breakthrough moment, that creative breakthrough moment, or when they just went from A to Z because all of a sudden the lights came on and they got it, or they finished that. Like somebody posted today in my classroom, can somebody help me make a movie? I mean, those are exciting. Like, yeah, we can help you make a movie, right? So those are the exciting moments for me that even when I say I'm going to retire, then part of me is, well, but how can I still stay connected to media arts and my students and teaching? How can I still stay connected? And I think we make, as media arts teacher, and Dain, you can attest to this, lifelong connections, because we are hearing their personal stories. We're seeing their personal lives in a way that no other teacher sees it.
Right.
Well, I just want to say how appreciative I am of all of you for your passion here. So, Julissa, here's a little different question for you. You are, after all, a college student. I assume you are engaged in other kinds of academics. So, what have you learned in media arts that has helped or influenced you positively in your educational growth in general?
I think media arts has allowed me to problem solve, like really think out a scenario or a situation and figure out and correct any issues. So I would say problem solving and critical physics, obviously. But I think what I'm most appreciative of is the diverse skill set that I've developed. So being able to do graphic design and photography and film and painting, like there's so many different mediums that I've been able to appreciate and take part in that have helped me grow educationally, but also personally. I've been able to portray my story and I've been able to tell other people's stories because I have those diverse skill sets. And so really that's probably the way that it's influenced me the most.
Here's another different sort of question, and Dain and Gayle, I think this is for the both of you. What is the connection between media arts and career and technical education, CTE? Because it would seem to me there is a through line there. Can we talk about that?
Well, let's start with that. They are very similar. They share many things. So a few things that are kind of stand out that are differences is that career technical education is that in that it is preparation for a career. It is a technical skill. And there is an emphasis on preparing students for fulfilling that as an occupation to some degree. And that can go all the way to certification and matriculation to actual jobs and entry-level jobs, as well as post-secondary programs. And the emphasis then is on making that situation very realistic, authentic to the situation. And then, so they call that industry standards, so that it has certain characteristics where that student knows what they're getting into and is trained for that and is ready for that. And so there's a lot of industry interface, a lot of interactions with industry, presentation of industry situations, industry professionals talking, industry equipment, and so forth. And that would tend to be the emphasis of most career tech programs. What we're talking about is media arts is much more diverse, variable, versatile. And it's, I think, much more of an art form in that capacity, because you can apply it anywhere to do kind of anything. And K-12, and so we're talking pre-K even, that students are going to be learning to use these tools, look at them, think about how they would express things, what did those things say, how do they look at their environment through this lens, and how do they share them, that sort of thing. And so that builds up through the grade levels and can intersect with the other subject areas, academic areas, of course, and become kind of an art form that is also there for their self-expression.
Thoughts, Gayle?
I found the other C, it's connection.
Thank you.
Well, as a career tech ed teacher, a big part of my curriculum is having students look at the possibility of how they can use photography or graphic design or even their yearbook skills in terms of project management and a future career path. Most high school students have no idea what they want to do. They might have an idea about what their parents tell them that they're going to do. Like I have immigrant parents, and when I was in high school, you're not going to be a photographer or a painter. I wanted to be a painter and a writer, and they said, no, you're going to be a doctor. And like, well, I don't want to be a doctor. Well, you're going to be a doctor. And they, looked over at my brother who played saxophone and said, and you're going to be a lawyer. And they looked at my sister and said, and who played violin and sings opera and plays piano, and you're going to be a teacher. And looked at my other sister. So they had, the regular careers that, doctor, lawyer, and I guess I'm the only one who actually said, no, I think I am going to be an artist and my media is going to be photography. And I think that for many students is kind of a conundrum. It's a conundrum. So they don't really know what they want to do. So when we're able to get them into a career tech program and they're able to explore opportunities beyond what their parents tell them is available, and we show them that they can actually make a living and that they can actually be happy.
All right. Are we all frozen again?
What happened? We froze?
Well, I think the freezing might have been on my part, but
okay.
we got most of that.
So
all right. So thank you, Gayle. I'm going to suggest a wrap-up question here, which is basically, where do we go from here with what does media arts hold for the future? What would you envision media arts to be in the next 3 to 5 years from your own perspective? So, Dain, let's start with you.
So media arts future, I think, has got incredible potential. The tools are continuing to evolve. They're becoming more powerful, versatile, accessible, affordable. And so media arts is with us. And, the potential is that we can expand these into the virtual area, and that can become much more accessible and doable in classrooms. And so I think virtual design, like I was starting to get to in the 3D design, is where there's a lot of potential for academic integrations. And so the virtual laboratory is what I call it. It's not specifically maybe one classroom. It's all the connected media arts classrooms and tools and devices and networks and media arts being in other subject areas. It's that media arts creates kind of this web of virtual possibilities for where you can explore different areas and simulate different kinds of experiences. And therefore, it can be that textbook that is multidimensional, so to speak, in its capacity to allow students to explore something new. They can explore the body, they can explore biology, they can explore microbiology through interacting with it, through designing it, through constructing it in a virtual world. In that sense, the arts have a whole new world that they can explore as well in terms of creative invention. And so this limitless possibility area would be the center of the educational system because it has so much potential for student-driven learning, student-driven inquiry, and it allows the variability of students to have their own learning pathway, to sort of start to direct their own learning process, and own that learning process, and really learn about their own learning process. So I think it has the means by which we can amend a lot of the problems that we have in traditional education, which tends to be very regimented, one size fits all, assembly line, get this information, get this information. It's very content centered in terms of read the whole textbook, test on the whole textbook. That's what we have to do. We have to plow through this. So it's not the quantity of information, it's your ability to access information and utilize it and apply it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dain. And Julissa, what are your final comments? What are you thinking, maybe from your point of view, maybe from where you will be in 5 years or 10 years?
I kind of want to touch on the last wrap-up question that you had about the future of media arts.
Yes.
Quite honestly, I don't know what the future holds for media arts, but I do know that I want to see more media literacy being brought into our curriculums, because it's a dangerous world of misinformation out there. And I think especially since we have younger and younger generations actually consuming media, it's important that we teach them how to navigate that. But project-based learning, like Mr. Olsen was talking about, is essential to creating the skill sets that we want future adults and future generations to have. So seeing more of that implemented, not only in the arts, in all kinds of parts of our curriculum, I think that we would see a benefit in that. But lastly, I was touched by Gayle's stories about how sometimes people are just forced into careers rather than pursuing what they want. And I've heard that story way too many times, and I'm tired of hearing it. So I think maybe promoting independent growth and independent thinking for students to actually go out and pursue what they want to pursue, rather than being told that they have to do this because of financial reasons or for whatever the case may be. I think actually having educators who promote self-growth would continue to grow and to develop our generation.
Wow. Thank you, Julissa. No,
That was long, but thank you.
no, it's okay. And Gayle, you get the last word here.
All right, I better make it good. I think that I want to see CTE build business programs and entrepreneurial programs for young people around our state and around, because I think it's really important for those kids who are in lower income communities to work at a Disney, or to work and to find their ways into these companies that will promote their growth as individuals, and also their growth as entrepreneurs, where they can take that back into their communities, rather than have these drains of these minds that leave their community. They go to USC and then they live in Beverly Hills to come back to those communities and to really make them grow and build entrepreneurship within that community. So I'd like to see more media companies, more athletes, more people with money, kind of pull into our public school systems what's lacking. And I hate to say that, public school is very slow at making changes, right? And so I'm always trying as a teacher, and because I guess I came from business, to find the loophole. Where's the open door? And I want media arts to be able to find those open doors for our students as well. And let's put students at the center of their own learning. I think that that's the most important thing that I can say about media arts. It puts the students at the center of their own learning. And I think that that's important for all of us to remember, whether that center is their story, whether that center is their skill, their heartbeat. We've got to find that and keep media arts right there for them.
That is such a great closure to this really wonderful podcast. Let's put students at the center of their learning.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for that, Gayle. Thank you, Dain. Thank you, Julissa. And this has been really marvelous. Wrap up. If you want to learn more, you can Google all of these things: the Media Arts Education Coalition, the Arts Ed Search on Media Arts Studies, and Dain Olsen's hot off the presses Why Media Arts Matter blog on the Arts Our Education website. Check out the California Media Arts Framework, the National Media Arts Standards, and the Model Cornerstone assessments. You can Google all of these, but the Arts for Education campaign will post these links directly in association with Dain's blog on our website in the coming days. So just to remind you, arts are education for everyone. So sign the pledge indicating your support for arts education. Urge your school board to pass the resolution to fund arts education in 2022-23, including media arts, and donate to Arts Our Education to help us share the message at artsareducation.org. At that, we are a wrap. Once again, thanks to our participants in today's podcast, and we will see you the next time. Signing off.